Guys, so in today's video what I want to talk about is travel and travelling with cerebral palsy. And I don't usually go many places. I'm not one to go like out places. I will just go to work or go to the shop or go to my girlfriend. I don't really have anything outside of those boundaries, but I have a thing where if I am going to go away or I am going to do something special, I tend to pack all of those things really close together, and I never plan it that way. It just happens. For example, last weekend I travelled to London, the West End, to go see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child at the Palace Theatre. That was a really good play. I really enjoy it. I thoroughly recommend you go if you can, because it's what I'd probably describe as a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And then next weekend, so the one coming up, so the 31st, 1st and the 2nd, I'm going up to London again, this time in the Islington area, to attend London Edge. And if you don't know what London Edge is, it's sort of a trade show / fashion show for goth and alternative fashion. I've never been before, but I'm hoping it's going to be good. I'm aware it's going to be a lot of walking and a lot of travelling, but yeah. I guess one thing people with just without disabilities and without cerebral palsy, it's travel and the easiness of being able to get to and from places. A lot of people take that for granted, I think, because I think what people don't realise is that if you have a disability, just walking is like 100% harder if your disability is physical, or even if you're fatigued, and especially with my cerebral palsy. And when you take travel into an occasion, everyone gets tired when they travel. It's just a known thing. Like, people feel sleepy on trains and coaches, and yeah, it just makes your tiredness even worse, I guess. And then what you've also got to think about is not only travelling to the place you're going to, you've also got to work out how you're going to get to the place that you're travelling to and from, how much time you need. Is there going to be a seat there? Is there going to be something there that will help you rest in between? And then you've got to think about getting to on and off whatever you're travelling in. I do drive, but I learnt to drive on an island where I live, and I'm worried if I go on what we call the mainland, if I drive, I'm going to end up in Scotland somewhere, because I'll just keep driving straight. I'm not a very confident driver, and yeah, I'm only good at driving if I know where I'm going, or if I've done it a lot recently, like because I went away last weekend and didn't drive for like 4 days in a row. I got in the car on like Wednesday morning to go to work, and I had a very brief moment where I forgot how to drive. I was like, what am I doing? And then I had to think, oh yeah, turning engine on, put into drive, because I drive an automatic, and then handbrake and all that. And once I remembered, it was good. It was like, I think it's like riding a bike. I don't really use that phrase because I can't ride a bike, but I think it seems apt here. So I've been to London a few times in my life. I live about 3-4 hours away from London because I live on an island. And for me, the first thing I've got to think about when I travel is a boat, because on an island, obviously, we've got to get across the water, because you don't have any major travel routes from here. You have to go to either Portsmouth, Southampton to be able to travel anywhere else in the UK. There's no sort of direct from anything from this island. So yeah, so first thing I've got to think about is the boat. And there are generally 3-4 options, or well 2, but they go from different places, and one of them is the fast cat. And I'm okay with that because I get that every day from work, because I do work on the mainland. But then you've also got to think, like, if you're travelling long, or because the fast cat or the catamaran service only runs at certain times, it may be easier because to match up with timings on the other side to get the car ferry, even though that takes about 20 to 25 minutes longer. And one of the things I find I hate about the ferry is the fact that most of it is stairs, and they're not very good stairs. I mean, they have a railing on each side, but when everyone is trying to get up those stairs, it's like you might as well just wait at the bottom and wait for everyone to pass, because otherwise you're going to be stampeded. The thing is, they do have lifts, but for me, because I think my disability is classified as mild, people aren't always aware that I need help, and I don't like to ask for it because I'm a stubborn cow. But yeah, and on the newer boats it's fine, they've got all modern lifts, but on the older boats that are still in service and still in use, they've got what I'd describe as like Victorian / Titanic style lifts, in which you've got to close the door yourself, you've got to pull the railing on for a bit, both the inside door of the lift and the outside door of the lift. And if you're not very strong like me, and with my cerebral palsy can't keep myself steady, that is hard to do. And then I'm also short. I'm 4'9.5", 4'10", depending on who measures me. And yeah, I can barely reach the handle, so I tend to choose not to go into those lifts because of the impracticality. Plus, I don't know, they just don't look safe, I guess. To me, they're probably perfectly safe, otherwise other people wouldn't use them. And I guess that's an advantage I have. I have a choice whether to use or not use that lift. I can use the stairs more slowly, more painfully. But I guess there are people who have to use the lifts, either in a wheelchair or it is unbearably painful that they can't use the stairs. And I guess I'm lucky in that way, but yeah. So once you get off the boat on the other side, you've got almost everywhere you've got to walk to either get to a coach, a bus, a taxi, or whoever's picking you up on the other side. You've got to walk. And generally, when you're tired from travelling anyway, I know what happens with me with my cerebral palsy. My legs just go heavy and I have to drag them, and I physically have to go 1 foot, next foot, 1 foot, next foot, because my brain is like, no, too tired, not working those. And it is extremely more tiring walking that way than my normal walk, and that is tiring in itself. And then depending on where you're going next, so last weekend I went on a coach that was quite easier than a train, because the difficulty I find with trains is that they say please mind the gap. They don't tell you that gap is almost half your height, and if you can't jump or walk very well, getting off that train is going to be difficult. And I've never been on a train in a wheelchair myself, because I've heard all the horror stories. I've heard people being left on there, and there was an article in the news more recently where a Paralympian was left on a train, and it stressed her out, and she was upset because she told the staff at the station she was there that she would need help off the train, and yet it still didn't help her. So even though many places have systems in place to sue assistance, it's not always implemented or carried out very well. For example, one time I've been on a train on my own. I said I may need some help on and off the platform because it was like, please mind the gap. It was about 4 foot, and I'm like, I'm going straight through that because I can't jump, and just nobody came to help me. Luckily, there was members of the public, people already on the train who helped me on and off, and another couple of people who acted as a barrier between the people trying to rush to get off. And that's another thing I find with cerebral palsy, especially, or mine cerebral palsy, is other people don't always consider that you're being slow for a very good reason, in the fact that you can't go any faster, and you're not just being slow because you want to be annoying or you want to hold up their day. Like, I went to a job interview in a hotel in London. It was for a job in Belgium, I think, at the it was at school in an IT department in Belgium, and they held the interviews in London. It's really bad, I can't remember the name of that because I really did enjoy that interview. The Institute of something, now I'll look it up. Anyway, and I had to take someone with me for that because obviously I didn't know where the hotel was either. I didn't know how far it's to walk to and from, and I always prefer to go with someone in case I fall over, in case I've hurt myself, in case I look like a lost sheep, because I've realised my face probably looks either permanently confused or I frown a lot, which is why I've got a really wrinkly forehead apparently. I think I've got like resting bitch face, but just with a frowny face, or my concentration face, as my sister called it. But yeah, for that we were coming out the underground, and again only some of the underground is accessible, and you've got big steps, big jumps. The escalators are like that big per step, and there's always people rushing to get around you or behind you. I was trying to let this person pass because I knew this woman was trying to force me to go faster, but my dad was like, he sort of acted as a blockade and was like, no, she can wait if she's being that impatient, which was fine, I guess. I understood his point, but having the pressure to get down the stairs when you've got maybe a queue of people behind you isn't always as good. But I liked that he said, no, she can wait. If she wanted to get past, she could go, excuse me, I've got this train in like 2 minutes, can I just quickly pass? And I think if she would have asked, it would have been alright to let her pass. But if she was just sort of pushing and forcing her way, that is the principle. And I did like that about my dad, that he was like, no, she didn't ask, she can wait. And that's what I liked about that situation. And what I found, because I've not been on a coach very often to travel to places, and I don't know why I haven't done it before, because it's a lot easier than a train because you are guaranteed a seat. And because my cerebral palsy is classified as mild, I guess, I don't always use crutches. I do if I'm travelling a long way or I think I'm having a wobbly day, because if I fall out of bed the minute I get, then that is a sign that I either need to stay home or do a crutches, because there'll be at least a hat trick for the rest of the day. But yeah, I recently got on a coach and I found that was a lot easier because we got there early enough. We was able to get our own seats. We even used the extra legroom. Probably annoyed some people because I'm short. My sister's not as short as me, but she is short in general terms. And neither of us needed the legroom, but we got on the coach first and chose it anyway. And that meant I could sort of put my legs out. I couldn't even reach the seat on the other side. And it was comfortable, so I generally recommend, if you haven't used a coach to travel somewhere, and you can use a coach, to travel with a coach rather than a train. On the one hand, it's probably cheaper. I found, like, when I'm going to London Edge, we just booked our coach tickets, and that cost us around 25 quid for a return. And I looked up the alternative on the train, and that was around £80, and that's a lot more money, and trains are awful to get on and off. People are always rushing you. You're more likely to fall over. So a coach I would recommend is, if you can get a coach to and from where you want to go, definitely try a coach, because you're almost guaranteed a seat, because there's nothing worse than going, oh, it's just as I get to the train, because you have to walk through the station or to the station and you find your platform. There's nothing worse than, if I just keep walking and walking, I'll get on the train and then I can sit down for the next 3 hours and do nothing. And then you realise when you get on the train that there are no seats. And I'm not one of those people to ask if somebody can get out the disabled / priority seatings. Occasionally, if people will offer, I will take it. But if they won't offer, I'm not really going to ask, unless maybe if I'm feeling that tired and have my crutches with me, I will, because I did have a bad experience on the ferry, which is weird, because I sat there just because I needed the seat closest to the door at the time, because I needed a chair, and this old lady and her husband were like, oh, can we sit there? My husband's disabled, and I was like, there was one spare seat next to me, otherwise there were other seats at the back, and I was like, your husband can sit here? Yeah, that's fine. And she was like, no, I mean, can we sit there? And I was like, no, I'm disabled as well. And then she went and got the ferry guy and said, just go on, let's get up. And I said, oh, I'm disabled as well. And the thing is, he knew, because I'm quite a regular on the ferry, he knew who I was. So he was like, well, your husband can sit there. Luckily, there were 2 guys on the other end of the seat who were in the priority seating at that point, but at that point they decided, oh, we'll get up and we'll move, and you and your husband can sit there. But I always find there's a split between the young disabled and the older disabled. They seem to feel more entitled, and they think, oh, she's young, she doesn't need this, oh, she doesn't look disabled. I'm like, what does a disabled person look like? And I call people out when they say that, or like when people watch you get out of your car and see, does she look disabled? I don't know if she's disabled. 1, there are hidden disabilities, and 2, what do you expect me to do? Fall out the car and roll to the door? I mean, I have done that, but not on purpose. I literally fell out the car, bounced off another car, hit my nose on that car, and then the force from doing that, I then hit my back on the car between. So yeah, that was a nice fall. It really hurt. But yeah, I think travelling when you have a disability, or specifically with my disability and how it affects me, it requires a lot of pre-planning, a lot of, how far is this walk from this thing? If I don't like short time limits. So if we've got a train and then our connection train is like 5 minutes after, I'm like, no, we're not making that. I ain't rushing 5 minutes to get on the train that we might miss anyway. I'm like, I'd rather have a bigger gap and wait around, or a bigger gap and then go find somewhere to sit, or just explore the area we're in. And then also, when you're travelling, when you're disabled, you've also got to consider the actual venue or place you're going to. How accessible is that going to be for you? Because the place where you live is different. You've been there with or people loads of times, or you've checked it out before. You can't always do that, because travelling in general is expensive, and it's even more expensive if you've got to pay for someone else to go with you as well, because I know some places offer like disabled and carer tickets, but not everywhere does, and I don't feel like asking the person I'm asking to come help me with, even if they get to do the activity themselves, should pay for their ticket, because they're primarily, I mean, I invited them to come for the trip, obviously, because I wouldn't invite someone I didn't like, but I feel like, oh, you're going to have to travel this specific way that may be longer, more waiting around because of me, so let me pay for your ticket. And that's why it is a bit more expensive, and not all platforms or anything like that, or have lifts, so you have to go to a next one or an earlier one and get another train for that one. And then you've also got to consider the place you're going to. So what are they going to be like? Do they have stairs? Do they have lifts? Are they going to let you in the door? And then you also get some, I think I'd call it maybe more indirect discrimination. And I've heard this happen to other people. Like, you get to an activity and you get there and you're all excited, and then they look at you and go, oh, you're okay, and then they go, oh, I'm sorry, we can't let you on this because it doesn't covered by our insurance. So basically you're saying you can't let me on this because of my disability. And obviously it may be because of their insurance, I'm sure of that, but I also know how much of a klutz I am, and I also know that if I'm going to die, I probably won't do it. I do know how to assess myself safely. It's not like, oh, I'm going to try everything. I'm going to try some, what's it called, free running out that window, because that is really going to go well for me. Like, I don't think people always consider that every day, all the time in our life, we look at situations and how we're going to get around them. We're adapting constantly. And I don't think people understand that. They go, oh, but if she dies or if she hurts herself, she's going to sue us. One, I probably wouldn't know how to sue you. And two, if I decide to go on it, you warn me that you weren't sure about it, it's my own fault, isn't it? I'd even write you a letter to say, you gave me a warning, but I insisted on going on it anyway. And I'm sure that would hold up if I were going to sue anyone, but generally, if I choose to do something and it doesn't end well, that's no one else's fault but mine. As long as you give me all the information, then that's fine. And one last thing I want to say about travel with my cerebral palsy is, even though it's tiring, even though it's painful, even though it requires a lot of planning, a lot of work, the genuine trip and the excitement of doing the activity generally makes you forget about that until you have to travel back again. So you generally enjoy your day and you feel like you've earned your day because you've done all this work to get there. It's not just as simple as hopping on a bus, because even hopping on a bus is difficult. Or even hopping, can't even hop. Don't think so anyway. Not really trying, don't think I want to. Yeah. So what I would say is, if you've got friends or people with disabilities, just consider how difficult or different or adaptive that their travel is going to have to be. And they're not saying this to be awkward, they're saying this so they can get there. And I know most people are aware that they are making it slightly more awkward about it, but please just consider it. And please, if you are seeing people out and about and they look stranded, do offer them help, but don't just do it. Just say, would you like some help? And stuff like that, because there's nothing worse than being in a wheelchair and then someone you don't know grabbing it and pushing you somewhere, because how do you know where you're going to take you? You don't. So yeah, my advice is just focus on the trip, focus on the actual activity, and generally, if you plan well enough, the travel you're going to do, everything will work out okay, even if there are some slight hiccups in the process. I know companies do try their best, but we haven't got the infrastructure in the UK to always support a completely accessible, assistive and disabled independent, and I think that's a big thing. It can't be on the individual companies. You've got to have something in the background to support and provide money so you can make changes to these services. And obviously companies and services are not going to know what they need to change until people give them feedback, so feedback is always good. I'll probably do another video in early next week after I've attended London Edge to tell you about that, because I'm really excited about that. It's my first time going. I've seen lots of pictures. There's going to be lots of goth people to meet, and I will tell you about the travel and how that went as a follow-up to this. And if you want to talk about travel or any of your experiences, let me know in the comments or just message me. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.